Yo, America, planet Earth, what's good? It's your boy Codell, and welcome back to another episode of the Father's Gospel Podcast. We got a good one today. We got Rob Chase in the house. Rob Chase is actually my district representative, so I'm excited to have him on the show today. And Rob, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Cody.
Yes, yes, yes. So you recently just got voted in, and why don't you go ahead before we get into all that? Why don't you go ahead and just give the people a little bit of your background on what got you into politics and why you're doing what you're doing now?
Well, I got into politics about the same time I got the internet in the 1990s. And
Okay.
uh, when I started reading a lot of the stuff on the internet, I found a lot of things that I had never learned in civics class, that I had never heard on the mainstream media. And I realized our country is in trouble. We're headed in the
Right.
wrong direction. So I thought, now what do I do? I wanted to get involved, but I thought, to run for office, you had to be a lawyer or something, and I definitely that wasn't anything I wanted any part of. But uh, so I joined the Libertarian Party, after looking around, because I liked a lot of what they had to say. So there's three things I liked about the Libertarian Party. It was they had a phrase that says, I cannot have my rights unless I'm willing to extend them to others. And the second thing was free market systems. That makes a lot of sense, as opposed to socialism. And I knew that instinctively. But the third thing was just war theory. And about that time, uh, the Iraq War was brewing. And
You said just war
just
theory.
war, yeah,
Okay.
JUST, like
Got you.
justice, just
Yeah,
war
yeah.
theory. That
Okay.
came from, after the Romans stopped throwing Christians to lions, and okay, let's settle down now. How do
Right.
we, how do we, what does God expect us to do under the New Testament? So it's all got to be agree with each other. So uh, Thomas Aquinas and St. Augustine got together and they developed this just war theory. It's like, don't inflict any more damage on your enemy than they are going to inflict upon you. You got to have a way out of this too. You just can't have constant war. And then the other things, don't kill the chickens and the villagers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was that for its time. That was a revolutionary way of thinking. I mean, that was a huge shift as far as just thinking that way about war.
Yeah. Well, then I discovered Ron Paul, Representative Ron Paul, and he was from Texas, but they called him Dr. No, because as a doctor, he had delivered 4,000 babies. And
Oh wow.
yeah, and but he got into politics and especially what they call Austrian economics, which is pretty much free market economics. But when we were going to go into Iraq, he said, well, instead of doing that, why don't we, if we can find that Saddam Hussein or Osama bin Laden had been part of this and prove it, then we could issue a letter of marque and reprisal per the Constitution and send like a Mission Impossible team or something over there and capture him like the Israelis did with Adolf Eichmann and bring him back and have him stand trial. Instead, I could see by then there's a lot of special interests in invading um, Afghanistan and Iraq, and I knew we were going to spend a lot of money, and we spent trillions of dollars, and we lost thousands of people too, not to mention probably a million brown people who never did us any harm. So that's
Right.
like the way to go. So I ran for Congress against George Nethercutt, who was leaning toward
Okay.
intervention, and I was afraid. I was really afraid. Here's this lawyer. I know hardly anything about the law, and he's going to make mincemeat of me. But I thought I almost had said stop the cameras. At that time, you only needed 1% to get into the general election, and so I was there with the Republican and the Democrat. But I had the worst anxiety attack of my life, and that term, as a new Christian, so that term came to me. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I thought if I could just
Right.
start talking, I should be okay. So I just started talking. Before I knew it, they said, last question. And then I didn't get to say half of what I wanted to say, So my stage fright had all left, and so,
It always happens like that. You'll have it all laid out in your head, and
uh-huh.
then even when you've thought of everything you want to say, you never quite say it all.
Yeah. In fact, that's still on YouTube from 2002, that debate that we had. And a lot of my people
Oh,
have
okay.
said they thought I did, if I didn't hold my own, I might even have won, if there was any kind of scoring system, because George Nethercutt had broken his term limits promise already. And, he was on the defensive the whole time, with the press.
Right, right. Well, hey, there's nothing wrong with attorneys, but at the same time, I think we got more than enough attorneys in government. So I think it's good to
Yeah.
get a mix of different backgrounds in there. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, if we need to do
Rob,
something, we should just do it, because
right.
you, there's all this money spent on attorneys and other things, and it's like donating to a nonprofit. How much that money actually gets to the person that needs it?
Right. I know. And it's funny they bring that up because I mean, I call me jaded, but I'm not I don't donate to any of the huge nonprofits because I'm like, all right, since I've had a memory, you guys have been trying to cure breast cancer. Where's all that money going? And
Yeah. Yeah, and if they cure cancer, then they don't have a job. So
right, right, right. Well, okay. So a few minutes ago, you were talking about, the internet kind of started you, on your journey of awakening, I guess. I don't know if that's the word I want to use, but so there's the internet. What was it the 9/11 event with the war in Iraq with the internet? Was that kind of what sent
well,
you
that
down?
was that was a catalyst. I'd always paid attention when I was a little kid. The first um, presidential I remember watching was Kennedy versus Nixon. And I was thinking, and my dad was for Kennedy, my mom was for Nixon. And I
Okay.
thought, why is everybody watching this? What is so important? And then I always kind of followed it somewhat, although I didn't take part in it till much later. And then when I joined
Were
the,
your parents debating? Were they debating during
well,
the
they debated fairly friendly. Back
okay,
then,
good.
we do that. We would,
Yeah.
like at Thanksgiving, we'd all get together, extended family, and some of my family had voted for Nixon. Some of my family had voted for like Goldwater. Some had voted
Okay.
for Johnson, and then we would, eat turkey and watch football. There wasn't the divisiveness, there is. I'm going
Right,
to pick
right.
you again because you voted for, Trump or Harris.
Now,
So.
did you guys, I mean, this is just a curious out of curiosity, did you guys when you guys got all to when you guys were all together, did you guys ever talk politics or did you guys avoid
Oh
it?
yeah, we would get together and have. My mom and dad didn't, have the best marriage. They were pretty opposites, but we always had dinner together. And then that's how I learned, just from their conversations. And we could talk too with our little ideas, and they would either say, well said, or correct us. So that was kind of
Okay.
like a nice time. And
So you guys were able to agree to disagree when the
yeah,
time
yeah.
came. Yeah,
And
that's
then you would
beautiful.
decide, well, I read this book and it said this, well, I read this article it said this, and so that's how you learn. That's learning begins with asking questions. So I would ask questions about that to
R-
my teachers and everybody. So, but then, like I said, I liked Ron Paul, but then when he ran for president, I joined the Republican Party. And since I
Right.
was the only person that had any experience, I got bestowed with the title of Eastern Washington coordinator for the Ron Paul campaign. And then I went
Okay.
around and put up signs all around, Eastern Washington and Central Washington too. But he didn't make it, and that's when I really realized there's a force there that would not allow him to be elected president. And then I started hearing about the deep state and the swamp, and things are out of our hands, and it's
Yeah.
already pre-designated, and I've been fighting that ever since then because it goes against the original intent of the Constitution. And the more I
Right.
read about it, I finally actually read the Constitution, and I realized that's probably like the best document for governance that's ever been written, the American Constitution and Bill of Rights. And if we would just follow the Constitution, we wouldn't have the mess we're in today.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think every I think every country doesn't necessarily need to like copy and blueprint the American culture, but I think every country should take the American Constitution and basically put it into their
Put
system
their own
and
flavor
yeah,
into.
put their own flavor on it, like because we really do. I mean, we have the only constitution that I know of that says our rights are given to us by God. We have guaranteed freedom of speech, all that stuff. And so, yeah, it really is an amazing document. I mean, God truly blessed us. And
Yeah.
yeah,
By contrast, the United Nations has a Declaration of Human Rights, I think, but and it lists all these great things. But at the end, it says we can drop these whenever we feel the need to. So that's whereas the American Constitution, hey, this is unless you have to go through the amendment process to change things. And they really don't follow, there's no reason if you really follow the Constitution, there really shouldn't be any health, education, or welfare at that level. It should be up to the states
well,
to
and
do.
and I think it's our constitution is the only reason we have been able to last as long as we have because our like we can't be destroyed by an outside army. We have to be slowly destroyed from within. And so
Exactly. We have to
the
destroy
deep state
ourselves
has no
if we're going.
choice but to take this long game with us where they slowly bring in pieces at a time over years and decades, and they tweak this and they adjust this and hope people don't pay attention, but people are waking up, man. And I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I got to
Well,
remind
one of the
myself
other
of that
reasons I ran
sometimes.
back in 2002 was we had a debt of $6 trillion, and it never went over 1 trillion until the Reagan administration, just not that long previously to that. That was after Lyndon Johnson's Great Society and Vietnam War and space race. We were still under a trillion. Now, instead of 6 trillion, we're at $36 trillion. So that's unsustainable. So at the
Right.
point where, you either stop it or you just keep inflating, there's trouble down the road no matter what you do. But I hope Trump can get the handle on things, and because I think recovery can happen if you just start doing the right things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm excited the big beautiful bill got passed. So I mean it's not perfect, but
Exactly.
with Trump for me, I mean, me, Rob, like we've known each other for I think for like 2, 3 years now, if not a little bit
Mhm.
longer. And I
Yeah.
mean, I'm a Trump supporter, but every once in a while, because I'm still always even with Trump, I know I'm gonna be naturally biased because I've been just very happy with the results. But even with Trump, there's been moments here and there where, I've had a little bit of worry, and one of my worries recently was with and I want to communicate this properly because it's like a very touchy subject. But like one of my worries was with how he was going to handle the whole Israeli Palestinian situation because for me, I want success for everybody. Like I want success for the Israelis. I want success for the Palestinians. I just want people to figure out how to get along, how to make things work for the best. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I don't have this hippy dippy vision of things. And so, so I support Israel's right to exist, but I also support the Palestinians. So, and we do give Israel a lot of support. And so I was worried that Trump might get us sucked into this huge Middle Eastern war.
Mhm.
And but the way he handled it, I was highly impressed. I think he did it the right way, went in and out. He basically snipered the areas that he needed to be sniped with missiles, got in and
Mhm.
out, cleaned house, and was done. And so, like, yeah, I'm getting a little off track, but
Well,
I was
I was pretty happy with how it came out. I had my doubts there because, and that's scriptural too, prophetic that Israel is you know going to be like the trouble spot of the world, this
right.
little tiny place. And if you ever played that board game Risk, all the armies kind of end up there in the Middle East, as they're at that crossroads. But still, I don't think we should be involved that much. It's because you know God doesn't need the United States to help him fulfill prophecy. He's gonna he's gonna do what
Right.
he's
Right.
gonna do. It's almost all it's predetermined and not predestined, but predetermined. I think that. this will all come out good, if we stay faithful. But I'm afraid if we did get involved, we could likely end up on the wrong side, be one of those.
Right. Well, and again, it's like I'm not saying this out of hate, but sometimes I think people and on both sides can get blinded with their allegiance because I'm like, look, whether it's Israel or Iran or whatever country you're talking about, every country is capable of having a good government, a corrupt government. I believe every country has good and bad people within their governments. And so it's just, and sometimes I think people really get uh, blinded in that whole situation with the whole Israeli Palestinian things, and it's just yeah. But I mean that seems to
And what I liked
be
about Trump
general.
was he didn't play by the rules. They didn't know what to make of him. They threw their best and brightest against him. He just destroyed them because he didn't fit into their mold at all. So nobody could stand toe to toe with him. And I think his thing, I when oh Rand Paul, that's who I was supporting for president. I didn't know hardly anything about Trump except that he'd been in WrestleMania, you know.
Right.
But then I have a friend, he was a Senator Brian Dancel up in like the Colville area. And I said, well,
Yeah.
who are you going to support? And he said, oh, Donald Trump. I said, you got to be kidding me. That guy he's just doing this as a lark, And he said, oh, no, read his book, Art of the Deal. And so I read it and I came to the conclusion that, we all have our self-exhilaration thing that we want to do, our one thing. Like it's if you take psychology, it's the hierarchy scale, and at the bottom, your first goal is like food and water, and then
Right.
afterwards it's companionship and then sex, but at the very top is fulfilling your dreams, and that's self-exhilaration, I think, and I think that was what Trump wanted. He wanted achievement. He wanted, since he had overturned or fixed casinos and fixed skyscrapers, he wanted to fix the country. He wanted to make America great again. That was his big challenge, and he had the money to do it.
Right.
And I think
Right.
the talent too. But I don't think he really realized his first term what he was getting into, because in businesses, everyone tries to pull together so they get a bigger bonus at the end of the year. And he didn't realize all the backstabbing and politics, although he'd been around it a lot. Unless maybe he knew that. Maybe some say he's 5 chess moves ahead. Who knows? I mean, usually
Right.
the
I
simplest
mean, honestly,
explanation is
that's
that.
that's kind of where I'm at. And I know you listen. I know you listen to and do you still listen to And We Know?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, I've been listening. Yeah, I remember you telling me that. I've been listening to that show for a long time. That and X22 and a couple others are like
22.
my go tos. And with Enwe, actually, it's funny because Enwe Know and X22 actually remind me quite a bit of each other, just the way the shows are laid out. But Enwe Know their production factor, just their intros always get me like so pumped up. And but I do like with Trump, I do believe he's playing what is it, 4D chess. I mean, I think Trump, when you start going down that rabbit hole and doing some research, you realize him and his family have a lot of interesting connections. And then there's just a lot of other things that line up to where I do believe Trump has probably been prepped. I believe they started prepping him for this way back in the 80s. That's
Mhm.
my theory. I have no evidence of any of this, but
Mhm.
yeah, I think he's been getting prepped for this for a long time. And yeah, I think he knew what he
Well,
was.
what amazes me is the risk he took. Unless he's got a time machine, you could see how everything turns is going to turn out. Because the risk he took, if he loses, the Trump family could be like the Romanovs.
Yeah.
They didn't,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
gambled and didn't succeed. And then sometimes when he does some things that you think, wow, this is really stupid. Why would he hire this person? He's going to get another knife in the back. Well, um, uh,
You got to
maybe
smoke out your
he's
enemies.
just testing this person. He's trying to bring him out. But also I think the best Democrats make the best Republicans, because I really like Tulsi Gabbard and Naomi Wolf and Elon Musk and Robert F. Kennedy, of course. They've all really shined because they've had the freedom to do a lot of things they had. And when I was libertarian, I thought that there's nothing a public solution is always going to be bad. But actually, I think there are public solutions that you have to have. You have to have some kind of a government, you just have to make sure that that government is run on, you have a moral government, is going to do the right things and
Right.
actually care for the people. So this is actually a very good career. This job. People keep saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry you have to go back there and do this." Well, it's the funnest job I've ever had in my life. It's like playing defense, all the time. So this last session was terrible, but
I
still, it
love
could have
that,
been
Rob.
worse.
Yeah.
So all we could do is keep throwing amendments on bills just to slow the juggernaut down. So it started out there's going to be six anti-gun bills, but only one of them got through. I mean, it's a bad one, of course, but still, if we hadn't been that resistance, it would have been a lot worse.
Well, and I keep telling people this. Like I was like all the madness that's been coming out of our state government. I mean it's been crazy for a while, but I told everyone I was like as soon as the election ended for the presidency, I was like, man, they are gonna ramp things up in Washington. Buckle up, boys and girls, because it is about to get a little crazier on this roller coaster. But yeah, I mean, you know what though? It's good, Rob. We got people like you in, and there's all sorts of. I honestly think that we are starting to slowly turn the ship around, and I see good things on the horizon. So yeah, yeah, it's
Good. Yeah,
it's
it's nice
good.
to be optimistic. And then when Trump got in for the first time in my life, I didn't really worry about nuclear war, because he was
Right.
like a peacemaker. He's running around trying to make deals with everybody. They just, automatically would reach for the sword when things had happened. So when I was a little boy, that movie Dr. Strangelove came out. I don't know how many if you've seen that but
James
it's
Bond,
set
right?
in World
Yeah,
War III. And I always expected to see, as I'm driving west in Spokane, and see some mushroom cloud over Fairchild. And I better pull over and say my prayers, because it's all going to be over. But I didn't feel that during the Trump's administration. Now, again, I'm starting to think, well, maybe, that won't be a scenario now. Uh,
no, no.
that'd
Well,
be stupid.
I think if we win this, I think we're heading into a 50 to 100 year stretch where I'm not saying things are going to be perfect because
Mhm.
life's never perfect, but I think we're heading into like a 50 to 100 year stretch where things are going to be really, really good. And we have
Yeah.
a chance to not just here in the US, but globally reach a level of peace and prosperity that we have never experienced as a species. I mean, it'll eventually things will crumble again, but I do think if Trump's successful and we the people make sure we support this movement and keep pushing it forward. I think we're heading into some beautiful times. Like, yeah.
Well, I don't know if 50 or 100 years. I'm not that optimistic. I worry it might just be a flash in the pan and we go back to the same thing after
Yeah.
this is over.
Yeah.
So, there's one lady I listen to a lot, Catherine Austin Fitz, and
Yep.
she's
Yep.
got the Solari report, but she thinks they're going to start letting go of some of these breakthrough technologies for energy that they've been hanging
I
on
agree.
to. And that would be nice, because that's what I think the Colombian snake are pretty much tapped out. In fact, that's one of the things I got onto this committee. We're trying to get back to where we count the water cycle as renewable energy, which we learned that in second grade. It rains the mountains, it comes down the rivers, goes evaporates, goes back again. Well, several years ago, they said hydroelectricity is not a renewable energy, which is flies in the face of logic. So, but that gave them the chance. Oh, we need more renewable energy to build all these useless windmills and solar panels that really add
Right.
nothing but a lot of waste. And when the money could be used on so many other things that we need.
Well, it's funny a minute ago where you're saying, about being like terrified of when you were a kid expecting to see like a mushroom cloud over
Huh?
Spokane or whatever. Like when I was a kid, the big fear thing they were always pushing was the ozone layer. The ozone layer
Oh
was going to
yeah.
melt. Yeah, I remember in ninth grade, they showed us a video and it was like, in the year 1999, there will be no snow on the planet. And they showed this family and they had the whole bio suit on when they walked outside. And I
Yeah.
remember being terrified. Not ninth grade so much. I was kind of starting to get over it by then. But I mean, in second or third grade, I was terrified because I watched this movie Highlander 2, and that was the theme in Highlander 2 was the ozone layer was gone and everyone
Uh-huh.
was basically dying. And I just remember being terrified as a kid. Like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well, I think they found out since you don't hear too much about it anyway, but they used to have deodorants. You have a spray can, and that was
I
propelling out
remember that.
stuff that was going up into the ozone layer and destroying it. But the ozone layer actually is not very thick some places, but it does move around a lot on the planet. And
Yeah.
the big one is I think is just so ridiculous is worrying about climate change. And you know, climate's always been changing for one thing. And
Right.
but the amount of CO2 uh, no one knows this. Even the people that are voting for these laws in the legislature, okay, how much CO2 is there in the atmosphere? Well, they don't know. Well, it's around uh, 400 and some parts per million of CO2, and of that, only 3% is man-made. So if you were to take all the man-made CO2 and the atmosphere is 60 miles thick, it's only about 12 feet, that is man-made
Right. Right.
CO2. And we need CO2 to live,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
die
Yeah.
without CO2. And it's, back in dinosaur days, you had those giant ferns and everything you see them eating. And some people said we could probably end world hunger if we had more CO2, you know.
Yeah,
So,
giant plants again.
crazy.
I mean, we might want to be careful. All of a sudden, we don't want giant scorpions popping up and having to battle them with laser guns and swords. But
Well, yeah, that might take some time to evolve that way. But uh, and then the other thing, if you take the surface area of the state of Washington, um, compared to the surface area of planet Earth, it's only 17/10,000ths of 1%. Like we're going to have a big effect anyway, even if we do
yeah,
pass these laws. And methane is even less, and
right. Well, I mean, it's just funny because I mean, in my lifetime, again, it started off with the ozone when I was little. Well, I started off when I was a little kid. I remember it was acid rain, and then they transitioned to the ozone, and then it went to global warming, and then it went to climate change, and now climate change it seems to be losing steam. So I'm like, where are they gonna go next? Like, like what's the
but
next
even
play?
so, I think we're all conservationists. I love the Spokane River, so I belong to Spokane River Keepers, which is kind of I say, more to the left in some ways, but I agree with their ideas. So I live pretty close to Centennial Trail, so a few times every summer I'll walk a mile in either direction and clean up my area
Right.
of the Spokane River. And but some areas like downtown are just really terrible, especially around a vista. Like when I walk out here in Otis Orchards. I might get one bag full of stuff down there. I only went about 50 feet, and I had three bags, full of stuff, and it gets in there and causes some,
You're
pollution.
talking
But
about like garbage in the river and all
garbage. I
that.
especially think, in fact, I think if we're going to declare on war on something, we should declare war on plastic in the ocean and get those mothballed aircraft carriers out there and make recycling stations or something. And that would give,
Yeah.
good maneuvers for the Marines and the Navy out there. And then we'd be doing some good with our Air Force instead of like
Right.
all the energy they do use and gas and bombing people, undeclared wars and everything else. It's Oh, and that's another thing too. I have a friend who's a Democrat over there. He's a good conservationist, and but in the Salish Sea, which is pretty much Puget Sound going up to Vancouver, BC, in the last 30 years, 80% of the kelp has disappeared, and they don't know why. So I think that's another important thing that we need to get a handle
Hmm.
on. And I think
Okay.
we could do urban uh, you can't really restore the Spokane River back to like the Mountain Man days, but
Of course.
you
Yeah.
you can make make it more scenic and fix a lot of the pollutants that do come now one thing that bothers me too is the tribes have some say over this, but they don't want any more than like 30 parts per quadrillion of PCBs in the river. Well, how could you even measure that? And I think it's legacy anyway, because in the manufacture of tires, they did used to use PCBs as thickeners in the rubber, Well, then of course, what happens to the tires as they wear down to the your steel belted radial things? Well, it goes has to go somewhere, so it gets washed into the rivers, and that's I
Right. So
think
you're
have a
saying
lot of our
legacy
legacy
it
PCBs.
right. So yeah, we can get it out, but it's gonna take you're gonna have to filter it out over a long stretch of time to really get it all
Yeah, we
cleaned out.
can't restore it unless we have another, at least not for another ice age or two,
Right, right.
to be pristine like where it was.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a conservationist, but I just feel like with conservationists, it's something that you really got to be careful when you're supporting conservationist legislation because it's one of those topics where it's very easy to emotionally manipulate people because
Yeah,
who doesn't want the environment to be healthy?
right.
Just everyone wants a healthy environment. So it's yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Mhm. Well, I had one
Rob,
bill that I thought was a great bill, and I got everybody on the wildlife committee, both parties, to sign on to it, but would have allowed the tribes to harvest the thousands of seals that are down there in Astoria and other maritime waters in Washington State. And the tribes want to do that. They say they've got markets in China for seal skin and pet food.
oh,
So there's
okay.
way too many seals. There's so many that they kill half the salmon catch coming up the Columbia. So
Right.
if you're able to let the tribes, whatever amount they were able to harvest of the seals would increase the salmon runs. And that way there'd be no need to get rid of the dams, that are up there on the Snake River. So everybody's happy, the farmers and the tribes and people that like to eat salmon and or fish for them. So it seemed like it was win-win-win all around. And I got 2,000 likes on the bill, but I got 6,000 dislikes. I think they thought we were going to be clubbing the seals, or something. So that
Again, back to that
but people
emotional
get too
manipulation.
environmental. I think just a big common sense. So maybe it will be heard next year. I hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Yeah. Just meme videos of just people beating seals over the
Yeah.
heads with
That's
clubs.
people automatically think and it wasn't so much that spotted owls, that was like an icon for the whole movement.
Oh, I remember
But oh,
spotted
Woodsy
owls.
Owl, that was like the
Yeah.
Forest Service guy, like
Yeah.
Smokey Bear, that they're using.
Yeah. Was the spotted owl a big thing here in Washington? Because when I was a kid in
Oh, it
Oregon,
was, yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah, they were always like, the spotted owl. We've got to save the spotted owl. I was just, as a kid, I didn't really know what was going on, but yeah, I
And
remember
no
that.
more logging.
Yeah, 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 exactly. All right. So Rob, let me ask you this. The next legislative session doesn't start for what, like another 6 months?
Well, yeah, it starts January, like, I don't know, 7th or something next year.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And
So
it's only a 60-day session. This last one, the first, it's a biennium, 2 years. So the first year you meet for 105 days, and then you meet again, tailoring maybe everything, but you could still introduce bills again for the 60 days of 2026.
okay, okay. Now you and I, again, we've known each other a while, so I'm very passionate about, the issues that family court that's going on with the family courts, all that type of
Yeah.
stuff.
Mhm.
I was watching one of your videos last night, and you were saying that you would really like to see some equal shared parenting legislation pushed through. Is there any bills that have come to you as of yet as far as dealing with equal shared parenting, or are you still searching for those?
No, I like what you sent me the three strike law. That makes a lot of
Right,
sense.
right. I mean,
And
that deals with it, but that's not quite the equal shared parenting, but it is in that realm,
but it's a
obviously.
step in the right direction
Right,
anyway.
right.
I'm taken back. We had that bill that did we thought was gonna go for equal parenting 50-50 unless there's extenuating circumstances, but that turned into like from what I understand, it's worse than it was before because just too many cooks got
It was
into
a
the
word salad, just too many
yeah.
loopholes
And I tried
and
to read through
yeah.
it. I had a tough time reading through it. Where are they actually going? But I do have friends on that committee that I
Okay.
will send these other two bills to and have them look at that. And then, what can we do if we put our heads together to actually, because I think people on both sides are very like this, but somehow,
I
making
agree.
sausage. Sausage maker broke down this last time,
Right.
but you
Well,
learn from your mistakes.
good news too. I actually have an equal shared parenting bill I will send your way. Like, yeah,
Okay.
I've got one ready to go. Like I said, I've got 12 bills total, and I'm actually probably getting ready to add another one. I'm going to be interviewing this gentleman, Brandon Jennings. He is out of Florida. He got the Good Dad Act passed out in Florida. And what that does for dads out there is for unwed fathers, if they had a kid out of wedlock, now, because this is an issue in all states. As a man, if you have a child out of wedlock, you don't have automatic parental rights to that child, but they
Hmm.
fixed that in Florida with his bill. And then he also released a book called the Good Dad Act, and it's #1 on Amazon for family books right now, dealing with the courts and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I've got his bill and a couple other bills I will send your way, Rob. And then
Okay.
also, I
Yeah.
want to start connecting you with some of these people as well. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a conference in Hilliard a couple weeks ago I went to and met some good people at that. So I think that I think that's equity, fairness, justice. That's what we're all about, and protecting people too. So I'll definitely read anything you send my way.
yeah. I'm excited to share because again, I'm very optimistic right now. I think we're gonna get things fixed over the next. Honestly, I know this sounds crazy, but I think we're going to be able to pass a lot of this legislation and get the family courts issues fixed in the next 2 years. Like, I know that
Hmm.
sounds extremely optimistic, but I feel that we are living in very spectacular times right now, in
Yeah.
times of great change, and the whole system's getting shaken up. And I just, as long as you're willing to put in the work, and when I say I'm talking about just people in general, as long as you're willing to put in the work right now, you can make some magnificent things happen. So yeah, yeah. And I'm excited, man. I'm very happy that we got you in office, and I'm really looking forward to not just continuing to build with you, but getting to build relationships with other legislatures and getting to know them and really just helping do
And
my
that's what
part.
we get paid for, is to listen to you guys and to represent you,
Yeah,
tell you how do we make this happen and try to find out either there is or there isn't. Maybe certain like I can't do a lot of this, but I know people that can possibly.
right, right.
So
Well,
that's
and it's my
responsible
responsibility
thing.
as a citizen to make sure that I'm letting that, hey, whatever the issue is what's going on. Here's some of the
Mhm.
ways I think we can fix it, and so on and so on. So I mean, it's really
Yeah.
about helping each other out.
And you got to do more than just drive around. That's kind of fun with a big flag on your pickup. Okay, that's great. But there's other things that you could do. Maybe if you find someone that you think would be a good representative to maybe doorbell for them or donate or show up at hearings too. Like the 6,000 dislikes I got on my bill. Those people, they seem to work collectively better than we do, I think, a lot of times. So we
No,
have.
I agree. I mean, I think we're starting to figure it out, but I mean, they've just been better at being organized and executing pretty much my whole entire life from what I've witnessed. Basically, until Trump came along and Trump kind of started teaching everyone,
Yeah.
hey, you need to fight back, and here's kind of how to do it. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one good thing, probably the most important thing he did, he actually exposed the deep state, the man behind the curtain that's
right,
actually been running things. And then a lot of people learned from that. Hey, things weren't as I thought they were, and they're not looking out for us. They're saying the right things, to us, but they're
yeah,
looking out for themselves, and then they, of
yeah,
course, retire millionaires when their salaries didn't approach anything and then become lobbyists, there's just but that's those are sins, but we sin because we're human. So we have to have that
right.
moral restraints, on our natural animalistic tendencies.
And I mean, to a certain extent too, we as a society, as the population, we have to look in the mirror and be like, well, yeah, what many of our politicians aren't doing is Right. But the reason we have so many of these corrupt politicians is because also we're not engaged in the process ourselves. We're not staying involved to make sure that our government is representing us properly. And
Well,
so,
I really believe we ought to get out the vote, but get out the informed vote. If you don't know what you're doing, don't vote. You're not doing
right.
anybody favors. But read, and it takes a while. Read the Constitution, read the Federalist Papers. There's books that talk about, different interpret, especially the 14th Amendment. I still find confusing sometimes, but
Yeah.
be a reader, and that's just being a civic duty too. And you're increasing your thing. And plus, if you get involved, it's a good networking thing. I've made, gosh, I think 30 years ago, I didn't have any friends, and now I've got too many friends sometimes, and I've made
Right.
a few
Right.
enemies, but that's worth it too. You learn from that. You learn
Yeah.
patience, humility, and
Yeah.
all those.
You're not doing it right if you're not making some enemies along the
Exactly.
way. So,
Huh?
yeah. No, it's yeah, man. It's just it's interesting times. And Rob, with what is your what do you want to accomplish, in the legislation for for your upcoming run? Like
Well,
what's
I'm
your
interested. I'm on the state government and tribal committee, so I
uh,
would like to someday in my lifetime, I'd like to see salmon return to Latah Creek. And I think it's
okay.
possible. It takes a lot of elbow grease to make things like that happen. But the other thing is voter integrity. I would like to, when I'm done too, people would know that their vote was being counted correctly. And I
Yeah.
don't trust because of a lot of things the last several years. Even when I was a little kid, and it was all paper, everything was being done Amish ways, and but there's still
Oh,
corruption.
fraud's always existed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think there are ways. We have a bill I introduced already, but I have another friend I'm going to work with another version of it, where each ballot would have a PIN number, just like your credit card.
Hmm.
So only you could access it and see how you voted, see your ballot if it's been counted correctly.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's interesting. I mean, that kind of makes my brain go in the whole crypto blockchain
Yeah,
direction.
because you were saying actually you could use crypto for voter integrity too.
Yeah, yeah. You put it on the blockchain, it creates a permanent immutable record, so you can't go in and manipulate it. Once you put that vote in, it's there permanently, so you can't go in and smudge the numbers around. And honestly, too, I mean, this was at the beginning of the interview, but you're talking about, not we some of these big government programs, like whether it's Medicaid or Social Security or whatever, we can't really get rid of it. So we got to figure out how to run it properly.
Mhm.
And so I think honestly, I think we could solve those issues by putting Social Security on the blockchain and maybe set up some type of system where every individual, they're paying into their Social Security, but that money that they're paying in is going on their own private blockchain to where they're the only one that has access to that money. And like, yeah,
Mhm.
but have it, you could set it up in a way to where kind of like a Roth IRA or whatever. You can only access it at certain points or in certain situations or whatever, so you can have it there for your retirement. But
Well, if
yeah,
we had put our Social Security in just the Dow, we would have
yeah.
4 times as much money as we're going to get out of
Right.
Social Security.
Right, right, right. I know.
And
Yeah,
I think
speak.
it should be at the state level anyway. I think you've got a duty to um, protect the innocent, and a lot of people, can't take care of themselves. So I think you have to help the widows and orphans. So there should be some safety net, even
I
at the
agree.
state level, that would be, but you would maybe keep it in something that's permanent, like gold or silver. I think a bullion bank would be great. I mean, I
Yeah,
was ridiculed by the Spokesman Review when I ran for Congress, saying we should go to a gold standard. And at that time, it was like $300 an ounce, and now it's 10 times that, because
I
I can
know.
see it happening. Well, if you're going to keep inflating like you have these giant debts and unfunded mandates, it's got to go up. And even then, that's despite being manipulated down because
Yeah.
that's the canary in the coal mine.
well, I mean,
Bitcoin, look at Bitcoin. That's what it's done.
I know I'm still buying Bitcoin. I'm still buying gold. I'm still buying silver. Silver though, man, I think that's a sleeper. I mean,
Yeah.
they're gonna all continue to go up, but I feel like silver right now, you can get the most bang for your buck long term.
Oh, sure, that's true.
Yeah,
If it
yeah,
gets
but
to the historical parity, yeah, it could be a 10 for,
right, because they always are gonna push gold out to the forefront before they push silver. But I mean, silver, I mean, gold's used for lots of stuff too, but silver's used in
Yeah.
so much electronic stuff. So, but
My
yeah,
very first job was at the Sunshine Mine in 1971, and
that's
silver
in
was
Idaho, right?
in Idaho, at Kellogg, Idaho,
Okay.
and at that time silver was $1.50 an ounce, and now it's like 36, and it should be well over 100, but gold was $37 an ounce,
Yeah.
So despite
Yeah.
them trying to keep it down, it's still, it's like trying to hold a beach ball, deeper and deeper
What
into the water. When it comes up, it'll
what
skyrocket.
is it? What's it at right now? About 1200, or am I too high on the gold right now? Is it in that
Oh, it's
1200
actually like 3,300,
for an ounce? It's that high right now.
3,300. Yeah. Mhm.
Holy crud. Like I didn't realize, yeah. And I don't know how I didn't realize that because I mean I
Oh,
don't
you're
buy a lot
smart. You don't
of
look at it every day like I do. Then
uh,
it goes down.
yeah.
Oh, you get depressed. It goes up.
Oh no, I definitely look at it every day, man. The gold, the silver, the crypto, like yeah, all that stuff. It's yeah, I mean, yeah, I can't help it. But
Mhm.
well, okay, Rob, is there anything else that you want to get out to the people that you think is important?
Well, it starts with getting off the couch, get involved, ask a politician, how can I help you? And they'll certainly let you know. And if you turns out you don't like that politician, find another one. Then find you've go through, and then you find one you like. You would like to see him in office, and then he will pay you back by letting you go to the front of the line when you got something to say. So I
Right.
have a lot of people, there's lobbyists sitting outside, and they'll see me first before they see the lobbyists because I have been involved, and I've helped other people and it's actually kind of fun, instead of uh, sitting on a treadmill at the YMCA or something, walking and walking and walking, you could walk your neighborhoods and you meet interesting people, get to know your neighbors, and handing out flyers and
Yeah.
everything too, and getting signatures. So, and putting up signs is another big one too. So, a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
of
Well, I
fun,
love it walking
really good.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting to know the neighbors again. We need to do that a little bit more. Get to
Well, I
know each
believe you
other.
have a duty to God, you have a duty to your family, and you have a civic duty too. Those three things, and you'll have a more meaningful life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I sometimes I feel like I'm that last generation of kids. I mean, I'm obviously not a kid now, but I feel like my generation of kids were kind of that last generation of kids that still we spent our days getting to run around outside
Yeah.
until the street lights came on and all that good stuff. Because it definitely started. I noticed it started dying off towards the end of my childhood. It's like it went from kids during trick or treating, running all over neighborhoods to not that still doesn't happen because there's neighborhoods that still do trick or treating, but it used to be every neighborhood just freaking swamped, kids running everywhere, and then it kind of
Yeah.
got pushed into the malls, and then watered down, and you've just seen that trickle into every aspect of childhood, and it makes me really sad. And COVID really kind of just took it to a whole nother level. Like I feel so I feel so bad for what adults did to kids during COVID. I mean, adults made the worst decisions from shutting down the schools to forcing kids to wear the mask to all that stuff. And I, I
Mhm.
think we owe kids an apology, man. The kids that grew up
Well,
during.
you should never leave a world worse off than the one you were born into.
Yeah, yeah,
Afraid my generation, the boomers, have kind of done that. So, and I hate seeing, especially kids, um, that's so important, and you see kids they got nothing to do. They're in these apartment complexes and, they're afraid to leave them, great to be
Yeah.
in them sometimes too. So when I was a kid, I grew up in Seattle, which is of course very urban, but it was a pretty good town back then. And
Right.
I ride my bicycle over to the Woodland Park Zoo, which is free to get into at that time, and I'd watch all the animals, and I'd ride my bicycle down to the Ballard Locks, and see the salmon coming through, and up to their Lake Washington, and
Yeah.
it's changed so much. It's people are afraid to let their kids out. That's one thing I've noticed doorbelling. There's people that are afraid to come to the door. You can hear them back there, and like Boo Radley types. If I don't answer the door, I can't get killed. They just
Well,
there's
it's kind of that double-edged sword with anything that, like the internet, phones, they're beautiful because of the access they've given us to information, how it's decentralized information. But then also the bad side of it is people have kind of, they've shut themselves off a little bit more from the world. And I think eventually we'll kind of go back towards more of a balance. But I think because this technology, even though it's been around a while, it's still in the grand scheme of things still really new. I think we're still just overdosing on it right now. We're just like, what
yeah.
do we do?
No,
But
it's like all these things ahead of us, robotics, and AI, like robotics. I could see getting rid of the legislature and putting all robots in there, with RCW chips in their head, making like
yeah,
the logical laws that we need. And then the AI, it's they're double-edged swords. Like, oh, people they invented gunpowder, all these beautiful fireworks, but then we're killing people with it too.
right.
Uh, and the
AI
Indians
is going to be the
got the
same thing.
guns and everything, well, or when Russia got the bomb, and then China, okay, well, suddenly it wasn't a unipolar world anymore after World War II. It's multipolar now. You've got to respect. That's why a lot of things, well, I had a couple cousins that were in Vietnam, and they said, well, we're not even trying to win this thing. But, at what point do you push until it could turn into a nuclear war and kill everybody on the planet? Too. So
Yeah.
a lot of things we have to work out and think through, but that's our challenge. And Ron Hallenstein, that's one thing he said that I really stayed with me. Our challenges, our circumstances are our challenges. So got to do the
Yeah.
best
Are you
we
still
can.
doing the Bible? Are you still running your Bible classes at
No,
Spofire?
that was actually didn't anybody really show up, but I think it was uh then I went to the legislature anyway, so I put it on hiatus.
Okay.
But I think it's probably best for people to find their own churches. I thought some people couldn't. There's sort of a camaraderie with us too that I kind of like, but maybe it'll come up again. We'll see. Hopefully, I
Yeah.
win my next race, but if I don't, then I'll be less busy. Too. I might do some.
Right. Well, it's interesting with me because I mean, I guess I got baptized a little over 2 years ago now, or right around 2 years. And I've realized for me, I will like I have a church that I go to and I love the church, but I've realized I'll never be a person that goes to church on a weekly basis. I have my other ways of
Mhm.
of of just I mean for me it's important to just make sure I'm reading my Bible and doing my prayers and self-reflecting. And
Mhm.
church I look at more as it's an important part of the process, but I it's more as okay, it's about the community for church for me. And I like to like I want to come to your church. I want to like I was
Mhm.
telling you about that Ethiopian Orthodox church I found the other day. I plan
Oh
on
yeah.
going there to visit, I just yeah, so yeah.
No, when I was a kid, I hated church. It was so boring to me, and and it wasn't even in a language I understood. But I was an
Yeah.
altar boy. That was kind of cool. But
Okay.
now I go to church. I go to my own church. I go to every Sunday. But I go to other churches too because I think it's interesting how the
Yeah,
different
you came to my
faiths that
church.
we have. Yeah,
Yeah.
hearing a different message too from a pastor.
Right.
So
Right, right.
now it's a lot of fun because I really didn't have those thoughts. When I was younger, I was just like, children are selfish, me, instead of
Right, right.
gonna
Well,
do.
and so for me, and again, I'm just speaking for myself. I accept Jesus, and I think 100% Jesus is the way. But I don't necessarily think any any particular group of Christians has it exactly right.
Hmm.
Just because we're all humans and we're all interpreting, but I do think the path is through Jesus.
Uh-huh.
And so, and so that's kind of, yeah, that's
Well, I think
for being
the
denomination.
Christianity is the best explanation of why things are the way they are,
Right.
scientifically, historically, and all that. So that's, but still, you can't have faith unless you have doubts sometimes.
Right.
There's
Right.
some churches I go to, I can't believe people would believe something like this. And then there's some, I'm non-denominational. I'm just, I'm Bible based, and uh,
Oh, you are
yeah,
Rob?
uh,
Okay.
I go to
Okay.
a Baptist
I
church
guess
because
I've never
that's what I like
asked
the
you, but I
pastor.
thought you were just I thought you were Catholic.
No, I was
So, but I
raised,
never asked you. You were raised Catholic. Okay. Okay. So, well, shame on me for just assuming.
yeah, and ethnically though, my mom was both Lutheran and Greek Orthodox. So
Okay.
all around Montana when she was a girl, if they could find a Greek Orthodox church, that's the one they went to. Otherwise, the default was Lutheran. But then my father, after the war, got his degree mining engineering, and then he worked up at Medellin Falls in the plant up there. They had a zinc mine, and one day he fell down a shaft, an inclined shaft, not straight down, inclined. But he was in midair, and he just said, "God," like that, and I realized that was the only thing in midair. He didn't know if he was going to be killed or not that mattered. And as soon as he got up back to the surface, he went to the first church he found, which was a Catholic church, and so we all got raised Catholic.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Rob, thank you,
Hey, it's
man.
fun talking to you,
I got
Cody, as
another
always.
interview I got to get done, but man, I'd love to have you back on the show. Maybe do some updates on what's going on your side with the legislative process. And also, I mean, we've talked, I plan on doing some legislative work with you for the family court stuff, so
Yeah.
want to make sure we keep the people updated on that as well. But
Okay.
where can people find you, Rob?
Um, just go to the best way is you can go to the legislative website, leg.wa.gov, G-O-V, and you can just click on House of Representatives, or if you want to contact your senator, we're all listed there. And then we just email us, and you would go through our legislative aid. We all have like a secretary that works for us full time, and mine is named Hillary Pham. She's Vietnamese, but she's only 28. She's already been a captain in the Air Force and decided that
Oh,
wasn't for
wow.
her. And so she's like getting into politics too. So, um,
Yeah.
go through and then you'll get to me because she makes up my schedule,
Okay.
to visit
Okay.
with people. Mhm.
Yeah, and you guys, if you're in District 4, please reach out to Rob. Rob,
District 4 is pretty much from like Havana in that area to the state line, and takes in about half of the city of Spokane Valley and half the city of Liberty Lake, but it goes all the way north to the Ponderay County line. And so Mount Spokane is within, it's a fairly big district.
yeah, and if you're not sure, you can go on wa.ledge, right? And just type in your address and it'll tell you where your
Yeah.
district is.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can
So
find it. Yeah, you can find it that way too.
yeah.
At the Spokane County, the assessor's office or treasurer's office, you have a map. It's called Scout, S
Okay.
like a Boy Scout. But you use the Scout interactive map, and then you can home in on where you live at, and then you can, then you hit district is like one of the tabs, and then it will tell you what precinct you're in. And if your
Okay.
precinct starts with the 4, then you're in the 4th district.
Okay.
It
Cool.
starts
Cool.
with
All
3,
right,
you're
Rob.
probably downtown.
I gotta let you go, man. I got
Yeah.
another interview I gotta
Okay,
jump
well,
on.
God bless you, Cody, and your listeners.
Yeah, I do, Rob. Thank you. Love having you on the show. God bless you too, brother. Thank you for getting in there in government and getting your hands, getting in there and just doing the work, man. We appreciate you. So we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Cody. Take care.
Thanks. You too. Bye.